Well, I finally got myself a retro collection Star Wars figure. Well, technically, I already kind of had one, because even though I just got this Death Trooper, I already had this Grand Moff Tarkin, but there is a difference. I have no intention of ever opening this Grand Moff Tarkin because it just doesn't really have much value to me out of the box. However, I fully intend on opening this Death Trooper because I've wanted one of these out of the box to kind of see how it is and kind of see how it compares to actual vintage Star Wars figures. So I don't really like getting unnecessary things in my collection. You know, I don't need like Mandalorians and 6-inch and TVC and retro. I don't need them in like all these different versions. So I decided the only one I would get to open would be this Death Trooper, because one of my very first vintage Star Wars action figures, actually one of my very first Star Wars action figures, period, was this one. This exact figure right here. This is a vintage Stormtrooper. He's a little beat up. I actually got him as a beater as a kid, no weapon or anything. I do want to like restore him a little bit. I want to paint him up a little bit. He's actually one of the few figures that I've treated in hydrogen peroxide, and he is not re-yellowed. He has actually stayed nice and white ever since I treated him, and definitely a figure I really cherish. I've always loved the aesthetic of the vintage Stormtrooper, and seeing how this Death Trooper very clearly kind of homages this, especially with the helmet and the torso being one piece, I figured if I have one, it might as well be a Death Trooper I can stand right next to the Stormtrooper. So, we are going to open it in this video, but first I want to look at this package because it's neat. But I don't really like what they're doing with the retro collection too much when it comes to the boxes. Bringing Tarkin back in, one thing I liked about Tarkin was the bubble. The bubble seemed way more faithful to the actual vintage Kenner bubbles. And this one is basically just a vintage collection bubble just on this retro card back. And how they make them retro is with this weathering on it. And I don't really like this weathering personally. I see the appeal. I see why some people might like it, but me personally, I'm not really a fan of it. I would rather it just not be there. I would also the sticker not be there. If it would be there, I'd kind of like a smaller one on the bubble, because, you know, trying to get that off, I'm kind of scared, because I don't want to ruin this card any more than it already is, I guess. But yeah, just flipping it around, you can see the back, pretty similar. I do prefer the Tarkin one because it actually has a, nice little classic picture right there. And that shows you all the other figures you can get. I will not be getting any of those. The only one I will have is this Death Trooper. So let's just do it. Let's just open it up. So if you have not seen how I open carded figures like this before, it's definitely harder to do on camera because I have a camera in between me and the figure, but normally I do it like really close to my body. But basically I take a hobby knife. You gotta, like, it's so hard to do it so far away. Kind of stab it right there. Then run it flat across. You kind of want to saw it right at this edge. Little saw action. It's so hard to do further away. Little saw action. Come on, there we go. And then once you get down here, there's a little empty space to let some air in. So then, you come up to the top, where you made your initial puncture, go back, bring it around to make sure you don't get the tip of the X-Acto knife in the corners. You don't want it rubbing against the surface because that'll make a big streak. Then again on this corner, you kind of have to like push it a little bit. And then it's kind of a straight shot down. Straight shot, come on. A little bit of saw action on that corner again. This is a little bit of a detailed tutorial. And then right down there, booyah. Alright, I did pretty good. I did get a little puncture in right there, because like I said, the tip of the knife might want to puncture right in. But, I mean, it's already beat to hell, so I don't really care. I just want to, like, kind of describe how I do it. So if you're kind of really unsure, because a lot of people still ask me how I open these, so I figured, yeah, you know, I'll like, tell you about the sawing and the precise motions. I'm sure no one cares. But yeah, here it is. Let's open it up. First, we have this very important pamphlet to look at. You always need to make sure you look at this. This is very important instruction before you play with your action figure. So it says, warning, choking hazard, small parts, not for children under 3 years. Okay, very, very good to know. And it's in, about 1,000 more languages. But yeah, here it is. It does have this very cool looking, like, retro styled gun. Like, you can tell with that handle too. It's just like a straight rectangle, like how the Kenner ones were. Let's get that out. Pretty stiff weapon. Not a lot of flex to it. I like that. And one thing I've really been curious about is how these feel out of package, because I have a decent amount of Kenner Star Wars action figures, and like I said, I've never opened my Tarkin, so I'm kind of curious how this feels. Oh wow, wow, that's actually that's pretty similar. I mean, now granted, one of them's 40 years old, and the other is like maybe 4 weeks old, so kind of like, you know, feeling the joints and everything, they feel very similar. The limbs have always had this nice flexibility to them, so they don't like just easily break, which is a very good thing on vintage figures. This one also has a little bit of that flexibility, which I really like. It's not like super bendy, which is good. They don't want to get in focus apparently, but you know, that's okay. I really do love the how they did the head. I love how it's just a big old stiff head on the body, just like the vintage Stormtrooper. I do feel like maybe the detail could have been a little more wacky. It could have been a little less accurate, because I almost feel like it still looks a little too good on that helmet there. But we'll actually compare it to the vintage collection style Death Trooper. But yeah, those actually go together really good. I know the original retro figures had issues holding the weapons. Come on, stand up. There we go. I wonder how he holds his. Wow, that's really good. Wow, he holds that really good. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I wonder how a actual vintage figure will hold it. Wow, he holds it good too. I say as it falls out. But yeah, he can actually kind of hold it. That's neat. I dig that. So I know some people are like, oh, I hate reproduction stuff, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, for me, you know, if it's something where would you rather have your vintage figure with a weapon or without a weapon? I'd kind of prefer it with, if, you know, I cared that much, but I'm not really that bothered by it. But yeah, I've never really had much of an issue with like these vintage homage figures. There's definitely a market for them. I personally don't want to collect them all, but I really just wanted one to have out of the package, just to kind of see what it's all about. And I'm pretty happy with this. Now, I do want to compare it with the actual modern-day Death Trooper. Where is he? There he is. So yeah, there's an actual. He's a little dusty. Please forgive him. He's been on the shelf for like a couple years. Yeah, there it is with an actual vintage collection Death Trooper. So you can see it's definitely a pretty drastic stylization choice. The helmet's way bigger on the retro one, even though a lot of the armor detail definitely still matches. I really like the vibrancy of the green. It's more muted on the vintage collection figure, even though I think this was the Black Series release, if I'm not mistaken. I do like the silver on the arm too. That just gives it a little extra added color, because it's way more subdued. But they wanted to make it a little more vibrant. It's the same silver that's on his belt, his Darth Vader styled belt. Yeah, that's really cool looking. I really like this guy. Yeah, I'll probably display him right alongside my other vintage Star Wars figures, because I feel like he fits right in. So yeah, it's one of those things where if you feel like this figure or this line is something that you might like, well, there he goes. I would say go for it. I really don't have much of an issue with this. It feels very good. It's solid. It stands probably better than some vintage figures, because the QC on a lot of vintage Star Wars wasn't the best. Some of them had legs longer than the other. But yeah, really like it. The QC is really nice on it. The joints move nice. The paint's good. It stands really well. It holds the gun well. They've definitely upped their game on these retro figures since they originally released them. I personally would really recommend this if it seems like something you want. I'm not going to go and get more. This will probably be my one and done, unless they decide to do like clone troopers or any other Imperial trooper I just think looks so cool in the vintage style. Like if they do an incinerator, ooh, I might have to get that, because it would basically just be like this with added gear and with the red markings. That might look really cool. I might have to get that. But I'm really happy with this. I do recommend it. I see the appeal for this line. It's not necessarily for me, but loose and carded, I see the appeal. I don't really enjoy the cards too much. because I feel like the card is definitely, I feel like they went a little overboard with the weathering on the edges. I would prefer it if it just wasn't there, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. It differentiates it from Vintage Collection, and I think that's what their goal was. So yeah, there we go. There's my look at the Retro Collection Imperial Death Trooper from The Mandalorian. I really like it. It's just got this charm to it. It's just really charming, you know? I like it. It feels really good, too. Like, the joints and just the plastic. Is it worth $10? I mean, comparing it to, like, the Super 7 stuff that goes for, like, 18, you know, it's a good deal. But comparing it to Vintage Collection, that's, like, $3 to $4 more and has tons more articulation and detail, then it doesn't look as good. But still, I think this is a nice line. If you can get it for like around retail price, $10, I'd recommend them, you know, if it seems like something you like. Alrighty guys, there we go. Thank you so much for watching. Special shout out to the patrons of Patreon. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Alrighty guys, there we go. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.